Hi, it's Michelle Moore here. I'm going to be talking about my passion for special education, a little bit of history about it, and why am I a dedicated teacher. I recently found this quote by Anne Sullivan, Helen Keller's teacher. Children require guidance and sympathy far more than instruction. I love the story of Helen Keller because it demonstrates that disabilities do not exclude you from learning the standards of reading, writing, comprehension, and importantly, critical thinking. Our education system is rife with amazing, compassionate teachers, the ones later in life you remember as a guiding light. The Quaker philosophy is that we all have a light inside of us, is a principle that I adhere to. However, for centuries, children and adults and with disabilities were seen as idiots, feeble-minded, and the common slur now, the R word. It is a long, convoluted history of best practices for children with exceptionalities, ranging from cages, sterilization, and institutions. Early outliers fought these changes in the education system to be inclusive. Dorothea Dix in the 1800s, and then up to President John F. Kennedy, whose own sister Rosemary had intellectual disabilities. He launched and developed a plan to combat mental retardation in the 1960s, and then soon after, in the 1970s, the ratification of Title IX preserved the right against discrimination and a free and fair education, including in the Individuals with Disabilities Act, or IDEA. Personally, my younger sister, never diagnosed but had a known low IQ, was educated in an inclusive classroom in the 1990s with only pull-out support. She was able to reach a fourth grade level. Watching my mom struggle to support her and advocate for her and others shaped my compassion and open-minded advocacy for social justice and reform. It also had me question early on where I thought students with exceptionalities were being held back and observed where they were being educationally supported. My mother was extremely patient and quiet spoken. I am patient but louder, especially when I saw my sister being called names. However, in the classroom, I find Anne Sullivan to be accurate, and my tolerance for difficult behaviors is notable with how I treat my students with compassion. Although I love seeing students achieve academic success, when they cross social and emotional hurdles, that's when I know I have succeeded. Especially as technology advances, you can learn anything if there's most motivation and perseverance. Therefore, social and emotional education needs to be brought to the forefront. Within the scope of special education comes a variety of complicated hoops around legality and ethical standards. Although documentations like the Model Code of Ethics for Educators exist, I have seen teachers pinch, shout, and talk down to students. This is not within the realm of the responsibilities to your teaching community, to the students, to your coworkers, and as well as technology. Every responsibility towards ethics I've seen misused in the classroom by the administration on small levels. And some professionals outright cross ethical lines and gossip about coworkers and students. Although I am frustrated with these varying levels of lack of moral standards, these fringe behaviors help me understand that my dedication to special education needs not just to be to the students, but to the paraprofessionals and the administrators and my coworkers as well, to see our role of a guiding light, not just as an educator, but also a keeper of education, the laws and the norms, but also the preservation of our students' inner light. The laws and lesson plans can be executed beautifully, exquisitely. You can have a lesson plan with all the I's dotted and T's crossed. And a student with disabilities might not care. They might not even notice the perfect font and respectful way in which you're talking to them because a diagnosis is prescriptive. And as special educators, we must gain the knowledge and skill of how to be descriptive. Listen. Listen to all the nonverbal cues. Listen to all the pain. Listen to what they're asking for, not just the demands of, okay, I'll do work if you give me a treat. But what are they craving that their diagnosis, their IEP, and best practices are not providing? So often it is guidance and sympathy, as well as for their families. In a world that teaches what is normal is perfection, is neurotypical, Understanding to love your neighbor shifts the focus off self-serving, but towards social serving. There are so many programs from food banks to online tutoring available for students with exceptionalities in their families. Perfection is not really an attainable goal, but community equality can be. Top leaders who have achieved these earned Nobel Peace Prizes. The Quakers earned one in 1947 for their pioneering work with international peace. A few, Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, Malala Yousafzai, for their struggle against the suppression of children and young people and for the right of all children to be educated. I've always been a part of so many activities and communities, ranging from boards, pickup soccer, special athletes. My life feels pretty complete and secure in the education world. So, getting my master's as a degree as a professional standard for higher education, I'm excited about, and I really can use the form and structure of the program to advance my own personal education. Although plenty of people throughout history have achieved greatness without degrees, I find the support really helpful, and that more of us that achieve higher education, it opens more doors for the completion of the higher standards of which we then can educate our youth. Like the above mentioned advocacies of Nobel Peace Prize winners, even on the simplest level of speaking up when you see something not aligned with moral, Christian, or various other religion standards, is what educators need to focus on. We must provide guidance to maintain the innocence, the bright light of the students, their desire to learn, and the bright light inside of us as educators, and not let the judgery, the mundane, the media cause us to shout, belittle, or lack standards because we become disenfranchised with the system. A system that seems to care little for the day-to-day support of special education, but more and more than the money to be gained by diagnosis and pop-up specialized schools. What we do need to learn about lesson plans and curriculum, a lot of that is already known and readily available on many platforms, including the advancement of technology and AI, and then companies peddling the latest, greatest books, or this is what you can use. But really, if we get back to an education of guidance and sympathy, like Anne Sullivan, we have the education available to us now. And what we need is that social emotional learning, the embracement that someone with disabilities has a light inside of them. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.